Welcome, everybody. This is the WORT Board of Directors meeting. It's Wednesday, October 19th, 2022. It's 7:02 and 18 seconds. Welcome aboard, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Everybody ready?
Yep.
Yes.
Kai is in transit now to the East Coast, so he won't be with us. I get to give the treasurer's report. Ha ha ha. Anyway, but we just had our finance committee meeting earlier today, so I have spent about 8 hours with Ward already. So the meeting is officially called to order. You have had a chance to look at the agenda in the Google Drive. Does anybody have any additions or corrections or changes to the agenda?
No, could I just ask one question about protocol here? Now, I missed a meeting last time, David, and I see that there's a way to sign in that you intend to show up. And I've seen other people send a courtesy message if you can't make it. What is the best way to do that going forward? I expect to be.
Just send me an email if you can't make it.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Hearing no changes to the agenda, we will consider the agenda adopted, and I will make a note of that. The September 2022 minutes, the draft minutes, were also linked on the agenda. Did anybody see anything wrong or need any additions or corrections? Hearing none, we will assume those are adopted. Or approved, let's say.
I did read those, and there were a couple items or a few items that were tabled until this meeting.
Right.
And but otherwise, I would, having read them through, I would motion to accept the minutes as written.
We don't do them. The way I do this is if there's no objections, I just consider it adopted. So
perfect. Okay.
Like Congress says without objection, and if somebody says I object, then it doesn't pass. So in communications from the public, we have had communications from Pop Samb, who's a volunteer with the Pan Africa group. He asked to be present at the meeting, and I sent him a link. I don't see him here. And we also had an email from Thistle Pedersen, and she wanted to have a link to the meeting, and I don't see her present. I see Shelley and Susan and Stephen Daggett here, who are all guests. And if you all are interested in saying something, let me know. Otherwise, we'll proceed with the meeting. Hearing nothing, seeing no hands, I'm going to proceed. Executive committee actions since the last meeting. We approved a higher or starting wage for the news producer position as the executive committee. It stands as Shelley says talk producer position.
Being that it is staffing, Dave, shouldn't we be covering that in closed session?
It's reporting the action we took on the pay grade. It's not. I think it's an open session matter.
Really? Because we're talking about somebody's wages right now.
We're talking about positions wages.
Oh, okay.
I mean, if you want to take it into closed session, fine. But
well, it's a bit late now. It's on the record.
I can take the number out of there. if that would make you feel more comfortable.
That would.
Which are often advertised.
Oh, do you think it's, I mean, am I off base here?
Yeah, I
Well-
don't think,
I agree with you, Doug.
I don't think people's salaries, I think they're a public record. I don't think that we keep them private. We have to report
Not-
things in a
Not
public.
part-time.
This is Susan.
Is it?
Susan, it does get reported on the 990, but we remove that page when we post the 990 on the webpage. So the salaries aren't seen. Now, if someone goes to Internal Revenue and gets a copy of the 990, then they'll see it.
Well, I guess it's our own, it's up to us to do this, to publicize it or not.
I removed it from the
It
minutes.
is a public record from when you put it in the 990, so people can have access to it. And so if we want to not say it, that's fine. If we, then I'm okay with it. It doesn't matter to me.
Okay. Shally, a lot going on in chat, so I better bring this up. Shally points out that it's not on the 990 that she saw, so that's fine.
I believe that's true. It's only full-time staff and directors that are reported on the 990, not part-time staff.
Mm.
And I felt like that was the distinction.
Well, I have removed it from the minutes, so and I'll remove it from the agenda when I post that. Well, actually, I won't post the agenda, I'll just post the minutes. So moving on.
Thank you.
We need to elect a new secretary of the board. Stu and I have chatted about this briefly. Stu, do you want to make a motion?
Well, I don't want to make a motion that I haven't gotten clearance from the person about whom the motion would be made. That would be sort of awkward. I will just relate to people that based on the meeting of the personnel committee the other day, I think that Amber would make a great secretary, and a great member of the executive committee, but until she thinks about it more fully and consents, I think my making such a motion would not be in order, would not be appropriate.
Thank you. Other people who expressed an opinion of secretary for the board? Shally, can we have you back as board secretary?
Yeah.
Just kidding. I didn't get dinner today, so I'm drinking from my bottle here, my water bottle. So,
I think, we can probably hold this over until the meeting of November, if
this is the
necessary.
second time we've done that, and
I mean, I've expressed myself, and
Mhm.
it's.
I just want to turn the screws a little bit tighter on the people in the meeting here. Anybody interested in becoming secretary? I will help as much as I can. Hearing none, we move on.
Okay.
Can I ask a general question about a vacancy on a board?
Yes,
In a context of like a condo organization, if someone's got a partial term, they do that by nomination typically rather than by election. Is that procedure, is that applicable here? Or because there is a vacancy at this time, and I don't know how long of a term that is. So my question is, how long would that be? And does it
That
have
would-
to?
that would be until June of 2023, when we have our annual meeting and we elect new members of the board at that time. And then after the new members are elected, we hold a short meeting where we elect a temporary slate of officers. And then in the July meeting, we elect a permanent slate until the following July. So.
Okay, so it's about a 9-month vacancy, essentially, what you have to fill at this point.
Right.
Patrick, are you asking about the vacancy as secretary or the vacancy on the board?
On the board, the latter.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's the method for filling that vacancy is prescribed in the bylaws.
Okay.
But
And
that's the
what
same
we-
term.
Yeah, Doug and I had we had a little discussion about this at the last meeting. And Doug and I set up the process when we met as the election committee, and the nomination process is open. It's been publicized. It's for a volunteer seat. So all the volunteers have been alerted to it. And they have till the end of this month to put their nomination in, and then the voting will be next month.
Okay.
Hey, Stephen
Thank-
Daggett, you're sharing your screen again. Do you mean to do that? I haven't done it. Your cat is playing with your mouse or something on this computer. So the next thing on the agenda is Treasurer and Finance Committee report. As I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, Kai is on an airplane on his way to Maine, and so he can't participate. The financial statements, including credit union balances, are linked on the agenda. So if you click there, it'll take you to a folder with all sorts of financial information. Oh, Sybil pointed out that the link that I sent out is an invalid link, so I apologize for that. Don't know how that could have happened, but I'm not going to change that now. So, the item of note in the financial statements that Mary Joy pointed out is that our income on the financial statements of 2022, and this is August of 2022, which is the last month that we're set to do reports on, is about $50,000 down from August of 2021. And Mary Joy points out that that's because we had not had the fall pledge drive at that point, and so that revenue doesn't show up. The way we do our financial statements doesn't average what we think that the income will be over the months. It in the past, it showed them in the month that the money was earned, and that would give a false sense of there's a dramatic drop in our income when it just happened to be before the pledge drive amounts could be entered into the books. So nothing to worry about here. We also talked about the possibility of putting some of the WRT funds into a higher interest bearing account. And we're going to gather more information.
What type of account are you considering?
It's too soon to say.
Okay.
We're looking at all sorts of options and the possibility of multiple options, so that if one option doesn't bear as much interest as we had hoped others would, or it's less likely that we'd be hurt in multiple areas. Our tendency is to be very conservative and not very risky. So we wouldn't earn a lot of money, but we wouldn't lose any. So we'll probably be ready to present that by the December meeting. Right now, WART has approximately $600,000 between Heartland Credit Union and Summit Credit Union. And we need about 200 to 250,000 for 3 months of operations. So we've got a good amount set aside in case of problems. So the budget process is in progress, and the staff is working on that. At the finance committee meeting, Doug mentioned the number of about $340,000 as a budget, but that's still a number that's in progress. So
No, that was 840, not 340, Dave.
I'm sorry. What's 500K when you're having fun? Sorry. Thank you, Doug.
Uh-huh.
I'm a little frazzled today. It's been a hard day. So
Tell me about it. I was right there with you for all of it.
I know.
So is it in a cash account now? Or
Yes.
It's in multiple
Multiple.
accounts right now. Some of it is in checking and some of it is in 2 different money market accounts.
okay, because I
But
think
we're feeling
that's
that some of the money that's in the money market could be put into higher interest yearning. We're looking at annuities, we're looking at various things, and we're not going on this our own. We actually met today with Marissa Menzel, who is the staff. She represents the IRA that the staff has. So she's already our contact for that. She's a financial advisor. Susan knows her really well, so we've been working with her for years. So this isn't something that we're just flying blind on our own. We're getting some really good advice, but like Dave said, we are right in the beginning of the process.
okay. Well, we just went through a similar thing in our condo where some of the money we don't need for a while is gaining interest. So I could maybe find out what those are if you're curious, but it sounds like you got it covered. So, okay. Doug, if you want, you can reach out to me separately if you want another data point.
I can't speak for Kai, but as treasurer, feel free to reach out to Kai and offer assistance if you like.
Okay. All right.
And that way it'll make it to the whole finance committee and everything. So that'd be great.
Okay. All right. I'll do that. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm just reporting my view from the meeting, but I was not in charge by any means.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is programming committee report. I don't see anything that arrived via email. Does anybody on the call have any information about the programming committee? Karen, go
Part
ahead.
of that was, sorry. Part of that was in my report.
Okay,
The programming committee is finalizing its second ARF. The ARF is the annual renewal form. You hope to send it out like this week or next week. We are using a program called Airtable, which I highly recommend you might want to take a look at. It has so many more capabilities than Access, and it helps automate reminders. So down the line, when people don't fill out the ARF, they're then, we're able to then push out another update. So that's what we're doing. Thanks.
thank you. I didn't receive anything about a community advisory board meeting or report.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that my responsibility to do that?
I think so.
Okay. Well, we met for the first time since recess over the summer. We admitted a new member. I'm drawing a blank on his, well, no, it was in Charlie's report. It was a longtime volunteer who couldn't volunteer much over COVID, and then had some mobility issues, so he really wanted to stay involved in the station, so he joined the cab, which was a nice addition. David Ponce is the name, thank you. And then we just kind of reviewed the summer, and a little touched in on the Ward Fest and all the festival work that we've done, and then that was about it. And I'll write this up next time. I kind of forgot to do that.
Okay. Stu, do you know if we have to approve as the board, the members of the cab? Doug, you might know this too.
Wouldn't, it wouldn't hurt. I believe we do. I recall such votes, and it certainly wouldn't hurt. to
I
wear
seem to
both
remember
belts.
that as well.
Oh,
that-
Okay,
I guess then I would move that we approve David Ponce as a new member of the Community Act Advisory Board.
second,
And then I might add that we had a nice interview with him, a longtime volunteer. We think he can add a lot, and he was a unanimous voted in by the cab committee. So I would urge that we just vote this quickly.
Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye, or raise your
Aye.
hand.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed, say no, or give me a thumbs down. Any abstentions? Okay. Thank you. Anything to report from policy and bylaws, Stu?
we keep earnestly striving to come up with a meeting date, but
Okay,
people have been pretty, and I think we'll let you know when we got something to say,
good.
something to report.
And elections committee doesn't usually report, although we did get one from Dean, thank you, from the discussion with Doug about the board vacancy. There was a personnel committee report item. There is no action item on that report. It describes the what we called a sense of acrimony developed between one of the members of the Pan Africa Collective and other members. And we're still working on resolving that issue. So there's no action that is going to be required by the board. He may appeal that decision to the board at such time as the programming committee finishes it.
Personnel committee.
Pardon me?
Personnel committee.
I'm sorry, personnel committee. I was looking at a thing that said personnel committee, but my mouth said something else, so.
Dave, oh, Laura's seeking, I'm sorry.
Laura,
I just wanted to make a quick comment. There was an email thread in this period between the board meetings, and I participated quite heavily in that email thread. I just wanted to say I'm really glad to see the personnel committee becoming active and picking up the slack. That's what I was worried about, was that this was going to get tossed into the board without going through the personnel committee. So thank you for doing that. Thanks for stepping up.
no problem. Stu?
Yeah, even though there's no action required of the board at this time, I'm wondering if there isn't a role for the board to discuss some of the big parameters, structural issues not related to this individual controversy, but the role of collectives in their operations and the amount of board oversight thereof. And I'm wondering if any of the Sybil's, anything you want to say? I mean, you understand our, and we may be getting into an area that should be in closed session. But there's a discussion at some point will need to be had about the role and authority of collectives and the board supervisory authority over that. Whether or not this is the right time, I'm not sure, but that discussion is going to have to be had.
Yes, and it certainly serves as a good reminder to move forward on that. I mean, this collective sort of evolved by itself, like from a couple alternating hosts into a collective, but it's really the only one that in the music department, you know, rather than just, like I say, alternating hosts. And, you know, everything did work fine for, you know, close to a year.
Don't.
So all I want to say is that, yeah, they didn't have rules, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't have, you know, it has sparked us to prioritize something we've been talking about for a while, which was to formalize operating rules and parameters and guides for program collectives. So that's really great. And also to take a closer look at our relations with different community, communities of listeners, and in light of diversity and equity and inclusion. So yeah, we're working on that.
Thank you. Further discussion? I don't know how to do this, Stu, but can once we figure out what we're doing about collectives, it needs to go into the volunteer handbook so that volunteers have an ability to refer to what are the rights and responsibilities of a program collective.
And says, and maybe bylaws. Yes, yeah. That's true. More work for another reason why we have to have a meeting. Laura's got something to say.
Go ahead, Laura.
It's my understanding that it's been a long time since the volunteer handbook has been updated. And it seems to me that there's no time like the present to go through that and possibly include this as one of the updates.
Laura, we've been working for over a year on trying to update it. So we're
well on the way on that.
Well on the way on that.
Okay. Is that part of the bylaws, policy and bylaws committee?
Yes.
A number of different staff has worked on it as well. So
yeah, but yes.
Okay. It would be good to have as part of a report maybe next time. What are the current undertakings of that committee? Just to sort of catch people, the newbies like myself, up.
Okay.
Thanks.
Shally, you made a comment of we need new members. Who is we? Policies and bylaws. Thank you.
Yeah, and we believe there's an appropriate role for Marla to continue to play as we finalize the work on the handbook. So, and I believe I've reported that to the board previously.
Marla was our previous a previous board member. So. All right, moving on.
Let me correct him. So I want to correct something, Laura. The Policies and Bylaws Committee is not in the bylaws. It is in the policy, creating the policy, is in the policy on committees.
Yeah, so would you restate that or say it over again?
You asked if the existence of the policies and bylaws committee was in the bylaws, and I answered in the affirmative, and I answered in the affirmative incorrectly. There is, it is identified in the existence of standing committees is in the bylaws. The inclusion of the bylaws committee within the standing committees is in the policy on committees as approved by the board.
I think you misunderstood what I was asking.
I'm
I
sorry.
was just asking, is the work that's being done on the volunteer handbook being done in the policies and bylaws committee?
Oh, yes. I'm
So,
sorry, I misunderstood. Yes.
thank you.
I think that the next item on the agenda is the Technology and Facilities Director Report. There are no action items on that report. Tom reports that we had to put a new filter on our satellite antenna up on the roof on 118 South Bedford. And if you looked at Tom's report, you got a great picture of Tom standing on top of a ladder, looking like he's on top of the world. And that's worth it just for that alone. He's also working on patching our roof. And it's time to look at liability insurance coverage again. So Tom is working on that with our insurance provider called Hub, and that's in progress. Any questions, comments?
What was that, a coincidence that he's standing on a ladder on the roof and talking about liability insurance at the same time?
Just a coincidence. What could possibly go wrong? Another item about facilities is the WORT mural proposal. And I added that to the agenda just a little bit before the meeting began. So I don't know if anybody's had a chance to look at that. I think we've seen it once before, but Patrick, would you like to say a little bit about that project?
Yes, thank you. So we did some work last year where I worked with Shali, Tom, and Adrian, and we ran around and run the bases and see what kind of background there is. Our mural was done in 1989, and it's the regulatory, if we want to, it is getting pretty old, and I mean, there's a lot of history and a lot of involvement in it. But if we replace this, what would it require? And we talked a lot with city people, alders, people that this led to a permitting process that we investigated, and a permission that is required. So there is a good bit of lead time if we want to do this. And so we kind of drafted up to see what would be required here, and what other precedents there are in the area for different murals, what people have gone through. And we ended up talking a lot with Henrique Nardi, who's a Brazilian fellow who's done a lot of work, and he's working on a project right now over by the Tip Top Tavern in North Street Cabaret over there in part of town right now. But he is interested in visiting, and it's very interesting, his position. He has some grant money available. So we looked at this to say, well, what would the workflow process look like? And I put this kind of a flow chart in this attachment that I circulated earlier. And if you want, I can share the screen on this, David.
Sure, that would be fine.
Okay, let's see if I can savvy enough to do that. Here. Okay, can you see that okay?
Yep.
So to get the permit in the city is really important, and that they screen this and they don't allow anything that directly relates to the business within the walls. So getting a draft to them is extremely important to find out what you can and can't do. And it costs $100 to do this. You also have to have permission of former artists, or that's a 1990 law. And the mural goes back to 1989. So whether or not that actually applies is something we'd find out. But I think, but the important part here is to look at this. It's a very low cost to do the permit, and we might be able to do an artistic concept here without any cost. So just scope it all out. People recommend that you do not proceed with funding or in any way cannibalize your existing funding to put this together. That there are funds available or different avenues you can go down. But finalizing the design and would be part of this, and then finishing that off and actually doing the work. So basically the request that's being made here is to entertain the idea of going through this process to get to the point of permitting. NARDI has got, we believe, some funding available to get us there, and then we could do this, and he would be compensated so that we would not be obligated to go there, because I mean, with all the creativity at WORT, certainly there would be a lot of designs people would like to consider. But to get this to the point where people could actually review it, or the city could give us the feedback we need, this is what we're proposing for a work process. So
Thank you.
yeah.
I would like to add a couple of things. First of all, whatever we do, whenever we get into this process, there will be people who say, "Oh, you didn't ask me. How come you didn't let me know?" And so we have to be very widely announcing that we're considering making the changes, and find a way to get that input into the station before it goes too far. And that's the only thing we can do to protect ourselves, is just to make sure it's widely publicized. And then secondly, you said you can't have anything about the business. Does that mean, what about the URL of WORTFM.org? Is that something that we can put up?
You know, there's a kind of a cautionary tale that I've heard from Bernie's Rock Shop over on Park Street, where they actually had crystals shown in their mural and had to take them down because it was indicative of the business. So there's how much of the sticklers they want to be. We've got a sign right now that says WORT and our 89.9 out in front. Mm-hmm. So how much are they going to require that? It is really.
And we show a picture of a radio.
yeah, which is well. So a lot of it would be to learn by going through that initial process, but I fully understand that people are going to want input on this. There's a lot of people that are invested long term in this, and mm-hmm. So that's something that has to be brought in. I think this, at first I thought that would all have to happen at the artistic concept level there. Marked with an A, but I think you could get to the permit point and find out what's really fair game, and then broaden the search at that point. You might have to go back through the permit application process if we come out with something that's drastically different, but it would have the buy-in of the WRT community.
Thanks. Stuart, question?
The existing sign is non-conforming and will be lost if we have a new design. We will not be able to say, well, we won't be able to do that. Did you ask Karen Wolf the direct question, can we have representations of a radio, musical instruments, microphones? I mean,
Yes.
You did ask that question?
Yes, and her response was, I don't know. You'll have to have an artist propose something to the commission, which is what we're doing. The first step is to have a design in hand first, different possible designs, to feel out the commission, to then take it back and realize what we can do.
Are
That's
those,
that's not a satisfactory answer by the staff member. Well, not you. Karen, I wasn't saying you were unsatisfactory. I was saying Karen's answer was.
Yeah, certainly would be more definitive, something.
Mhm.
Amber,
yeah, is it that 1990 policy or law that was put into place? Is that also the place where the prohibition against something that represents the business was enacted?
That's my understanding is the 1990 law has to do with the permission of the prior artists.
Yeah,
And not.
Yeah, I share the question about how have we been able to grandfather in radios and microphones, and
There is a story about this, right, where it almost wasn't approved and we basically did it anyway the first time around. And I don't think that would fly again. I can try to dig it up. I think Tom has more details.
I laugh because it's WORT.
Do we have contact for the artist of the existing mural to get their permission?
Yep, Adrian already did that.
Got the permission?
Yep.
Okay.
It wasn't just one artist. It was
Yeah.
like many.
Yeah. Okay, and you put a check, then Patrick put a check mark on that part on your flow chart.
Yeah,
There is probably one more thing we need to do. I forget what it is, like run a notice in the newspaper for anyone we can't track down or something like that. But obviously we haven't done that because, again, the first very step is artistic concept. Many people have many different thoughts on this about whether it should happen at all. So the first step that's free to us are the concepts from Unreek that are already happening. So
Dave,
Go ahead, Dean.
I don't know how to raise my hand, but thank you. Well, a couple of things. One is that I like this whole proposal, and a couple of things about it. I'm glad that when you decommission a piece of art, you should be respectful about it. And I'm glad we contacted the previous people that did the work on it and inform them and let them know what's happening. And then perhaps. And then the other thing is that I think this should be fun. Make this a fun activity. We could do a really cool thing that WORT wants to do to the building. And I like the idea of being edgy with it, and have some proposals that bring a little edge would be fun, because that's what WORT is. And if we try to push the limits on what's acceptable or not, I like the idea of doing that. So, and I also think that this is an opportunity to raise a little money. And something that board members should always keep thinking about. We do this and have people promote it and say there's cost to it. We want to pay the artists. We want to do things. We want to raise some money, make it really, really cool. Maybe even add some lighting, who knows? But there's a way to have all of that, make it a fun activity, draw in some people, get noticed to work. It's a nice publicity, have fun, maybe raise some money too. So I think this is a really neat idea that we can cover a lot of ground with.
Lighting requires separate applications for permits. And when I
So
talked about,
yeah, that's okay. We'll look at that if it comes. To hell.
I talked to the city about lighting after the shooting in 2018, and they said, you've got lights there and it requires a permit. And so we do have street lights, and the front porch light is always on now. I put a cap on that switch so it's hard to turn off. So I think that's the best we're going to do on lighting. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Well,
thank you for all the discussion.
Well, one more little thing. I was thinking that maybe the artists that make a proposal will want to do it in neon. I don't know,
Okay,
so maybe, so I don't know. So I'm open to review, so look at some creative ideas. I just went to that Gleam show. Maybe someone like that will want to slap something on the wall. That would be very,
Stu, go ahead.
Well, I think staff is insistent that we're wasting their time with this discussion.
let's go.
I did just send you the City of Madison interdepartmental correspondence from 1989 on the first time that we tried this and we got shut down halfway through. Fun reading.
All right, thank you.
Fuckers.
Patrick, are you done?
Yeah. Is there a proposal that I need to make or a motion or anything at this point? I think we want to proceed and hear Enrique out and find out where we go next on this. So I wanted to bring this up as soon as possible for this. I'm not sure what protocol is here or what the procedure is, but
But didn't the board already approve this in December of 2021?
I think so.
Yeah, I do too.
I mean, we already said yes, so I don't think there's any further.
Approval
I
you need.
mean, you already got approval to move forward with Enrique because we were under the understanding that there was was of the essence because of these grant funds that were available to do the preliminary designs. And the board agreed to go along with that process almost a year ago.
okay. All right. Well, I think that'll we'll have an update as we go here, and that'll take us up to the permit point, up to that application point.
Great.
Okay. All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for your work on this.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you.
absolutely, because I've noticed that some businesses are getting pinged around town because of their dilapidated buildings and are actually getting fines because especially the paint over the brick is starting to wear. And many businesses, especially in the downtown area, have been forced to update their facades as a result. So I think this is great timing.
Great.
Right.
Engineering committee meeting, engineering committee notes are there. They're linked in the agenda. There are no action items. In the business and events report, there is an action item. Doug, you want to take that?
I would. Sunday is the Bolorama. We've always historically had a wonderful time at this event. We've got WORT DJs spinning music while bowlers bowl for raffle tickets, which they drop in the prize bucket of their choice. We've got 12 great prizes. Please, if you can't make it yourself, please share the event. If you just click interested on the Facebook event, it's enough to share it and invite others. Really appreciate your help promoting this great event. Complete list of prizes is on Facebook. More information on the event is on our website, including an electronic registration form that you can just be emailed to me, and then we'll be sure that that bowlers have a place to lane to bowl on. So we've already got people registering. We've already got over $1,100 in sponsorships. Just incredible amount of prizes. So we're really looking forward to Sunday, and it should be a really great event.
Thank you very much.
Oh, and special thanks to Ralph, Rock and Ralph, who really did a lion's share of the work putting this together. He did a bang up job, the head of the events committee, or work group, I should say.
Very good.
Doug, is there's both the Facebook post and a Facebook events post, is that right?
There is a Facebook event created, yeah, and then that
Okay.
would be the where you can invite your friends
Okay.
and has the full information on it. And that
Got it.
you should be able to
Got it.
get there through from the WORT page. Yeah,
I got it. I got it. I got it.
awesome.
So part of your report, Doug, includes the special election for the new board member. And a little bit on the progress on that. I'm not sure why it falls under staff and business development, but
Oh, probably just because I report on all my activities in my board report.
okay,
So part of my activities this past month has been setting up the special election for the open seat.
that clears it up.
Yeah.
Can you just touch on that? Are we on track to have the voting close on November 1st?
No. The application deadline is November 1st.
Oh, because it says
The
voting.
voting begins on November 7th. And maybe I did that board report really fast. I've been super busy. So the voting window for the applicants is November 7th to December 7th. And then December 8th will announce the winner. And then the December meeting will be their first meeting. So it really is actually only a 7-month term. And that's because special elections, according to our bylaws, have to follow the same rules as a regular election. And that means we have to give 30 days of an application window, followed by a 30-day voting period. During a regular election, that would be because of absentee voting in front of the annual meeting. For special election, we do it just to give that same 30-day period. So that's why this process is taking a little bit long, but we are following the rules on elections to make sure that everybody has a chance not only to apply, but to vote.
Would you be able to amend your report to include those dates?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. And we have applicants, so I'll say that too.
Yeah, again, I have to weigh in.
We got a race.
I should have put that under an election committee report, but thank you, Doug, for doing that.
Oh, sure, no problem.
Next on our agenda
Well,
is the
Dave,
lit-
just
Go ahead.
Doug, did I sense in anything in your report that you think do we need 30 days, given that we're filling a vacancy that is already for a shortened period in the middle of a term and we're down? Do you think that could be properly shortened?
I don't know that it needs to be really,
Okay.
mostly because the two applications came at very different times in the period so far. It wasn't like we got two of them right away and then nothing else. So I think maybe some people wait till the end and go, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to do this? And I like that it gives people that option to mull it around a little bit, because it is giving up a Wednesday a month plus 5 hours doing other stuff.
No, I was asking about the voting period. Is a month?
Oh,
Do
the
we?
voting period.
Yeah.
I think there too, like people go on vacation. We've got collective members who may not check their WORT email for a while, and
Okay.
until they get back to the station even. And I think for those people, the month is a really good time period.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. The next report is the listener sponsor development report, and that's Susan's report. There are no action items on that, but there's a ton of information on that report. Do you want to review that report in this meeting? I can do that if you want.
Well, Susan's here.
Any highlights? I read it.
Are you asking me or are you asking board members if they want to hear it?
Is there anything special you wanted to point it out? I read it. David's right. And I read it all and it's all good stuff. But is there anything specific you want us to note that other than the entire report?
Little bit surprised at the fact that counting the after drive, which is what we always call the week after the 2 weeks of on-air pledge drive, when people can still go online and select any of the thank you gifts that are still left. I'm surprised that we saw such a big outpouring of money based on the fact that other community radio stations have not reported very successful fall drives. And we all believe that's due to the fact that a lot of people are contributing to campaigns. I know I've sent a lot more money out of state for out of state campaigns than I've ever done before. And that particularly on the West Coast, California and other people are seeing $7 a gallon gas prices, which makes you feel like even if you're not driving that much, just kind of makes you feel like holding your wallet a little closer to you. So in some ways we lucked out by being in the Midwest, but on the other hand, I really think our listeners are responsive to our message, and I'm very, very grateful to our listeners. That's probably the sum of my, lots of numbers in the report, but the feeling is a lot of gratitude toward our listeners who choose to donate in tough times.
You're here.
Susan,
That's-
did the record of first time donors make you feel any more sanguine about the future?
I actually don't have that record yet because Tom hasn't had a chance. Tom hasn't uploaded the online, so I only have a very partial record.
Okay.
I don't, until he puts that into Civi, I can't run the data in Civi to see how many. So anecdotally, it looks like a lot, but just based on the ones that donated and didn't just pledge, we can't tell.
Doug, to the extent that you did auditing, do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, I saw a significant increase in new donors almost across the board just by auditing, because that is one of the things that we count in auditing. So there were totals on the bottom of the forms, but you know, just because somebody writes, yeah, I'm a first-time donor, they might have forgot that they donated a few years ago. So really, it's uploading into Civi that really gives you the accurate picture, because people might say, oh yeah, I'm a new donor, but yeah, no, you're actually not. You remember that one you did in 2017? So, and I don't know if, you know, because that's like a returning donor, which Susan quantifies differently, and which we all quantify differently. But so I think Susan's totally right that once it's all put into the database, we'll have a more accurate picture. But I can tell you, as someone who audited almost all of the folders, it appeared to me that there was a significant increase.
The number that we came up with as the semi-final number is really similar to what we had for our winter pledge drive.
Okay.
In March. So, and the March number is a final number. I can say for sure March right now. Yeah. And I will say, when someone puts down that they're a new donor and we find their record in there, we just keep going with their previous record in the database, but we treat them as a new donor. They're sent a copy of the schedule. They get a handwritten letter from me. They get stickers. If they're thinking of themselves as a new donor, as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to treat you like a new donor. It's only the fact that in our records, you know, they're put in a place that isn't a new donor. So when Civi records it, we base Civi on when your number was assigned to you. You each get a different number. So the really early numbers are from way back, and the numbers that are in the 34,000 are recent people that donated. So that person would not be counted as a new donor according to Civi records. But just know that we still treat them that way.
Excellent, thank you.
All right. The music director report from Sybil just came at 7:00 p.m. via email. So I didn't link it into the agenda. I didn't have the time to do that because the meeting had already started. So there are no action items, and you can read that afterwards unless, would somebody want me to project that onto the meeting here? I can do
No,
that. Okay.
no.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the digital production director report, and we didn't receive one. News, talk, and public affairs is next. Shally had as an action item the increase of the starting wage, which we took care of in the executive committee. But there's also a mention of Jan Miyazaki winning the Backyard Hero Award from Community Shares, which is great for WORT and for Jan. And on the sad news, Alan Ruff's wife, Pat DiBiase, passed away a few days ago. And Dean let us know about that too. Alan has taken a hiatus from the show because of that. There are no other action items, but you can see our web statistics if you go to Shally's report, how many people are going to our webpage and so on, which is always interesting. Any questions about news or music?
Yeah, Shally, the international delegation. Oh, Shally?
I'm here.
Okay, the international delegation, are we in any, you said we're going to welcome, do we have any leadership activity, or are we part of the general group that's involved here?
What?
Never mind.
No, I'm confused.
Never mind. Never mind.
Are they going to be visiting the station?
Yes, they're going to be in the vinyl library.
Oh, well, it would be nice to have David, could you make it there and introduce yourself as a board member, maybe? Nice to have a board.
It's a pretty tight schedule. We've got other people coming too. They've told us specifically what they want.
Okay.
Bye, Rodney. Okay, so the Department of State reached out and asked us if we would like to participate among other institutions like the Wisconsin Center for Investigative Journalism. It's news focused. It's like the Edward Murrow. Edward Murrow is in like the program description for it. So, or the title. So it is news focused, but it's about the station as a whole. And as I learned today, it is really supposed to be a conversation. It's not, they don't want a presentation. They want to have a free exchange with these journalists so that they can really ask us questions. We can really ask them questions and maintain that relationship down the line, right? And exchange email addresses. So if any of you would like to come, just let me know and I'll put out more chairs in the vinyl library. But if you could let me know by Thursday, which is tomorrow, sorry, that would be great because we need to get you in the booklet in the program schedule and just account for that. But no one should be really taking up too much time talking. I mean, you can answer questions, but we don't need a 30-minute thing on anything. So we only have 2 hours. So
what time is it scheduled for?
10 a.m. to noon. They're getting here at like 9:45, so you could probably come a bit early. But It's very cool. I asked Molly and she's like, I've done similar ones, but not ones with the Department of State. So
Yeah,
that's in the building. Everyone be careful.
I'm up for it.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be, you know, I wasn't talking about us making a presentation, but as board members, that might be some, provide them some useful information about how we structure ourselves.
Sure.
I won't be
Like I
able to-
said, if you're coming, please let me know by tomorrow if you could do so in an email so I don't forget. And of the people who will be there, I would like to kind of delegate who will be talking about what. And I'm strongly considering getting a gong to cut people off who go on after 5 minutes, because we don't have a lot of time.
A long hook.
What?
A long hook.
Yeah,
Thank you.
well, good. I'd like to hear a little bit more about this maybe at the next meeting, just how this was. I'm just curious about it. Thanks.
Moving on, the volunteer and outreach coordinator report did have an action item, and it was the new CAB member, David Pouncey, which we approved. There are no other action items there. And any questions about the volunteer and outreach report?
I guess, well, the only question I have, should I be making an additional report or just let her do this? Maybe you can answer that offline.
Okay,
Because that's why I didn't do it. I just assumed we always got her report and I didn't do it. So
Okay.
I'll talk to you about this.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and I have a feeling even historically it was Glenn that would report and then Paul Novak would just like, as the board liaison, agree with the action that was needed or
Yeah,
with Glenn's report.
That's
But
pretty much-
to my memory, it was always Glenn that had done the CAB report as opposed to Paul Novak, who was the board rep to the CAB.
Yeah, I was board rep last time I was on the board too, and that's how it went as well. So I guess I'll just add in next month, anything I thought you might want to be noted, I'll verbally report that. Otherwise, I'll just leave the report up the way it is.
Very good. Thank you. Next report is the diversity, equity, and inclusion report. I think Susan had expressed a concern about when that was going to be. Did you want to say something about that, Susan?
I did because, and I think Rebecca is on the board and she's present, but she hasn't been part of the DEI committee since its founding as I have. So originally, Glenn was still here back when we founded the DEI, and we had a discussion at a board meeting where we said we preferred to be a work group rather than a committee for flexibility, because there's going to be discussion of subjects and things that happen at the station that we don't want to necessarily have part of the public view, that this work entails, you know, some things around that. And the board voted and said, yes, you can be a work group. And so we carried on as a work group. And then come August, without it being in the agenda or anything, you ad hoc switched us back with Rebecca gone and no one from DEI present. You switched us back to a committee with no discussion or input from anyone from DEI. And I would like to request that we go back to a work group. We've already got one person who says, if you don't make me a committee member, if I don't get approved by the committee, I'm just going to show up at every one of your meetings as a member of the public, which is allowed. I'm not going to name the person.
Dave, Laura is seeking recognition.
I'm sorry, I was trying to look through notes. Go ahead, Laura.
Sure, I was trying to give you the opportunity to look. I'm the one responsible for bringing this up at the last meeting. I just offhandedly suggested that we change it from a work group to a standing committee or to an official committee, because I thought that the work group didn't convey the importance that I think we need to give this particular duty of ours. And it wasn't meant to, to ambush the committee or the work group. So I apologize for that. But that being said, I'd like to work on the committee. I expressed that to Dave. And one of the problems that I had was that I had no idea who was on the committee. I had no idea when it met. It was difficult to, and this is a problem I think we have right now with a lot of the committees. If there's no report that's been filed, then we don't really know who's the membership of that committee. We don't know how often they meet. I had that trouble with the personnel committee when I was trying to discern how we were going to approach this personnel matter recently. So I think that the more we can be transparent about these things, I think the better for the organization, although your points are well taken, Susan.
I should point out that we have a document in the Google shared drive under the folder committees, which is the committees for 2022. And it lists all the committees and who I think the members of those committees are. And that's available to everybody. Amber, did you have a question?
I just wanted to contribute that at that previous meeting, I supported Laura's move, and I still would. I hear Susan's concern, but I think there is serving the greater good, which is transparency and input from the community, particularly around diversity, equity, and inclusion.
And I found that at other places, including community radio stations, the meetings are not open to the public for the very reason that discussion of race is a difficult subject and people are not comfortable speaking when they know there are people observing them that could be publicizing what they speak. We want people to feel free. If you've ever done anything with Reverend G, they don't put that stuff out there. When you're talking about race and you're getting down to dealing with that stuff, it's done in a circle of trust. That's what he calls that stuff. And I understand your desire to have things public and stuff. And I believe with financial things and with many other parts, that's true. But when it comes to having people be able to speak about what has happened to them at the station, what they've observed people doing here, and other stuff, which is part of what we wrestle with. Okay, we'll start naming, we'll be in front of a public person who will have no trouble publicizing what we say and any kind of things that we are going to do. I don't think I think the fact that other radio stations do not make this a committee speaks to the reason why we don't want one. And I do want to mention, our group is almost 100% white. At this point, that's uncomfortable for me. And while white people are welcome to join, I am much more interested in getting a diverse group and setting out to find people that aren't necessarily all white for a diversity committee. It's a bad look and it's not good for us to come up with good solutions. So while I appreciate people wanting to join us, I'm really interested in people that are not white. I'll just say it. Our group needs more non-white members.
Thank you. Rebecca.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, there's a very specific reason why corporations keep the Equal Opportunity Hotline confidential. And that's kind of what we're saying is it's not a confidential thing, but in order to gain structure and in order to actually put this together as such that we could then invite community in. This portion of it, it's not going to be able to have a specific calendar. It's not going to be able to have a specific who's going to be there. I mean, you don't necessarily know. And so that's part of the reason why I also agree that at this point in time, something with that sensitive should still remain the work group until, you know, it can be revisited later down the line. But for now, I completely agree with the points that Susan is sharing.
Are we seeing the DEI committee as simply a place for people to make complaints about?
No. But part of what that is also knowing that you have a place that you can approach and say, hey, these are suggestions. Hey, I'm also, you know, I'm going to say this. But like with putting together the survey and putting together the, I should say the tasks that are on the list, it's not set up to be conducive to say, hey, everybody just join in right now because we're putting this together. It's one of those things where we're trying to make sure that we can make sure we're effectively being diverse, equitable, and inclusive. And until we reach that point, it still should remain the work group in order to then be able to be, these are now our structures. This is our mission. These are all the things that have been in place and approved by the board. Now we can invite this as a committee. We can have a subset, maybe committee for the community or something. But there's a portion of that that still does have to remain safe for those reasons. Not because that's the only reason, but for those reasons, if that makes any sense.
Sure. I think there are processes that need to be held close. I also think there are processes that need to be elevated and visible. And to borrow Susan's phrase, it's not a good look. The idea that there is first of all, I object to the idea that whiteness is the only axis of diversity that needs to be considered. But second, along those lines, it's not a good look to have only white people in closed session mapping out what a diversity agenda looks like and who can participate in shaping it, and then presenting it to the community as a done deal done by white people in a closed process.
No, those are all valid points. And I work for a Black-led organization. I work with Nehemiah. So when the things that she's discussing, you know, it's something we discuss all the time. So I agree with all of the things that you're saying. It's also to the point where we need to make sure that we can map out what's the best route to be able to recruit? What is the best route to be able to do? And some of these things, although closed to a degree, there is a little bit more ability with our screening process of having somebody who is a volunteer already in our file, so to speak, to be able to start that process off. We're not trying to keep it the way it is for those reasons that you mentioned.
The only thing that we are working on right now is a survey to go out to volunteers, board, and staff that references many different points of diversity, from whether you're abled, what religion you are, whether you identify as being suburban or an urban dweller, it has many different points of diversity to it. It's been approved, it's been used at other radio stations. We'd like to get it out there, because we just want to take a snapshot of where we are right now. And I don't think that depends on having a lot of people in the room. I feel like we've got a good survey. We showed it to you guys. You guys approved it, I believe. Nobody has a memory of that? I'll go back and look at the notes. Anyway, that's all we've done. At this point, our whole thing is to do a search for people. We know the different parameters. Amber, I don't feel like we're missing understanding the different parameters of diversity. The fact that I described us as all white is just a first starting point. We're mostly women, we're mostly white, none of us are disabled. I mean, there's a whole range of things that we want to have. But at this point, all we want to do is get a survey out there. We're being contacted by people. I've been contacted by people who know that I'm on DEI. We have a way for people to complain. there's EEOC complaints that are on the board. That's not our job, but we can make it our job to publicize that. That is in the volunteer handbook that is to come, and it is something that is told to everyone that becomes a volunteer that this is where you, this is how you go about filing a complaint. And it isn't to us. That's not our job. But we are hearing from a variety of different people. You're on DEI. I'm just going to tell you this is what happened to me, and I hope you're doing some of your work addresses that.
Hang on, Stu has been waiting for a long time.
And I'm gonna let the discussion continue. I'm sorry.
Okay,
So what our last thing from the meeting was that we were all going to appeal to the volunteers once again, which we've already done once, and asked if someone would like to join us. The fact is that a lot of people say, I've already got a lot on my plate with diversity work if they're already a member of a group that's considered a minority. But, you know, if you want things open and above board, then we're going to be going in closed session quite often as a committee.
Susan, help me understand. The closed session would be to go over the fine points of a survey, or to?
No, it would be if somebody wants to, if we're discussing what somebody said happened at the station and we're disclosing their name and the exact situation that they described, we would go in closed session for that.
Sure. And wouldn't that then be also a referral to the EOC committee?
There is no EEOC committee.
So, but there is a process for that kind of complaint.
No, if the person has told us they don't want that to go any further, it doesn't go any further.
It sounds like there's some ambiguity about whether the DEI committee handles those kinds of concerns. Or
I'm saying that when we're trying to come up with things and policies and possibly any kind of presentation that addresses different issues that can come up in the workplace, which is something we're working on, that those are things that we want to understand. That sometimes people don't realize what triggers. People might not realize that having a police siren go off during a group thing to indicate that you go to another station is very triggering for some people. And people want to tell us that at this one meeting, this was really triggering, or a variety of things like that, Amber, that we want to discuss, that people have names attached to and actions and places where it happened, and we don't want to do it in front of a general public.
I agree, and I think that there still does have to be some sort of confidentiality that can be trusted for people who approach the DEI committee with certain things. And especially, you know, like she mentioned, the triggers and things like that. But I think the main concern with it is that it was changed without anyone from the DEI committee to be able to have an opportunity to discuss the things that we're discussing right now as to why that would be valid or not a valid move at that point. So I think that I'm not sure what the action steps should be on that, but I think it should still remain a work group until, you know, we can accurately be able to say, hey, well, we're all on this committee and we need to be able to have a say so, et cetera.
Stu.
Yes, it was wrong of us to have acted in the absence of any representation in the discussion by a member of the DEI committee. Absolutely. And we should have had this discussion before we did so. I'm still uncertain, though, why the committee wouldn't feel its consideration of, why DEI wouldn't feel its consideration of the survey would have been improved by having public comment on it, which would come in a committee meeting. I understand the issue of sensitivity to the topic. I understand the need for maybe every meeting would ultimately go into closed session, but I don't understand why something like consideration of the survey would not have been improved by participation by someone outside the monochromatic nature of the current group.
Just to let you know. Oh yeah, you want to answer that, Susan? Go ahead. You can answer it.
because the survey was actually vetted in not only by other community radio stations, but community radio stations, the one that serves the Native American groups, the one that is from in Kentucky that is largely serving a Black audience and has almost all Black members, a group that disability groups, when the NFCB came up with the survey, they vetted it among a huge amount
Okay.
of
Okay.
diverse people.
Okay.
And we felt like they had gone
Okay.
way beyond what we would be able to do.
Then what is the tweaking you're doing? Why, what is your consideration of it involve?
Well, the only tweaking that's left, you guys, I still think we showed you the survey. At least we had it in a document. But anyway, to go back, the only tweaking we're doing is we are concerned, because we have made this survey entirely voluntary, that there are people out there that, and I've heard at least one or two at the station, who feel like diversity measures, especially among volunteers, means that white people will have less opportunity, or people that are in any different way a part of the majority will be given less opportunity based on a desire to increase diversity with a limited number of slots. Okay. So that's always where you're starting from with most diversity efforts, is to reassure to some extent that this isn't any effort to say you're bad and we need less of you, and this other thing is good and we need more of that. If we're starting from that angle, we're really, you know, we feel like there needs to be a little bit of prep. So you guys said that we could roll the survey out as part of a board action. Not from the DEI committee, but it would be coming from the board. Now we hear that the CPB would like us to start doing some of this work and actually including it in our CPB application. So we would like to have that be something. Everyone, the survey is voluntary, it's anonymous, and every single question has the option. I would prefer not to answer that. They can answer whichever ones they want. But we are asking the board, the only thing we asked and the board approved it was that they were going to do it. At this point, we're just trying to tweak what it says as far as the CPB goes and what the requirements are for that, so that we can tell people honestly, we need your response to this. It's voluntary, but without, you know, a good majority response, we're failing.
I would like to redirect the discussion to the more specific question of, this motion was approved without the input from members of DEI committee, and how do we resolve that problem?
I move to revert the DEI function to a work group pending further action by the board.
I would second that.
I think we have to, thank you. I think we have to let them continue as much as I respect the sentiment behind Laura and behind Laura's motion and Amber's support. I think we have to let them continue as they have been operating to finish a project that is near fruition, and then give us more time to consider all the implications, because, you know, I don't think I fully understand all the activities of DEI, and I think this is a really nuanced question, and I want more time to think about it. And I think reverting it to the prior status, the status quo ante, would be in everyone's interest until we further considered. Yes, in consultation with DEI, absolutely, in consultation with DEI. Yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult to similarly. I have similar response to Stuart. I don't think I disagree with anything that was said. So maybe go back to the status quo of 2 months ago, and then finish the survey, get it out, and then we can redetermine what we're going to make this committee then.
There is a motion before us with a second to make DEI a work group, not a committee. Further discussion?
Can I just say one thing real quick? It's not
Yes.
part of the discussion. We meet ad hoc when we can get all together. We have a lot of people who have a lot of different responsibilities. I would be happy to notify board members when we're meeting. So if any board members want to attend a DEI meeting, you're very welcome to be there.
That's good.
Sure.
One of the issues is, as a committee, we are required by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting to notify, to have notices of our committee meetings and for our committee meetings to be open to the public. Work groups do not have that requirement. So that's one of the other factors that factors into this discussion and vote.
I think that's kind of the primary factor to some of the members.
Yes. I believe that we have come to an end of discussion, unless anybody else wants to add something. So the vote before us is to convert DEI back to a work group. All in favor say aye or raise their hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no.
No.
You gonna call for abstentions, Dave?
Yes, I'm just making notes.
Okay.
Are there any abstentions?
I will abstain for now.
The motion carries. We have voted to make DEI back into a work group. That is all. Go ahead.
I still would like to join the group. Doesn't sound like I'm very welcome, but
That's not true.
You are welcome, and we will send you the information for the next meeting, Laura.
okay. Thanks. Thanks for clarifying.
I'd like to be on that list too.
Sure. And if you know of anyone that is different from you in some way,
I
that
get it.
perhaps doesn't identify as a woman and doesn't identify as white, bring them along.
I'm just gonna register my objection. But I get that this comes from I trust this comes from a good-hearted place. But choosing committee members for a specialized area of knowledge entrusted with a really important mission based simply on demographic criteria, I believe is just as superficial and prejudiced as all of the values that theoretically we stand against.
I have to chime in real quick and just say that that is absolutely not how that work group is being done. It's not how the survey is being done. That is absolutely incorrect. I apologize if that came across that way, but there are multiple factors of differences that we're trying to make sure we get a cross section of, whether it be religious, age, sexual orientation, color, background, any type of thing that you can imagine is really what we're trying to do, which is why the survey is such an important step, is to avoid things happening such as what you just mentioned. So I just want you to make sure that you know that that's absolutely where we're going with it.
I appreciate that point, but when we say bring along, if you know somebody different from you, bring them along, like that's not the heart of survey design.
That's called a joke, Amber.
Well, you know,
and it does reflect my belief that when you don't have someone in the room that has expressed, when you don't have, for instance, somebody in a chair that is part of your group, you are going to miss many things as much as you know, unless you're someone like Jeff Spitzer-Resnick, who I would welcome in the group, who has spent his whole career doing disability law. You're going to miss something. And that's what I'm trying to make a point of, that people who have lived the experience are valuable for having lived it. And I'm not saying that somebody else who hasn't lived it, who has studied it, is any less valuable, but I'm saying, and I'm not saying everyone I'm inviting everyone. I want someone to come to the committee who is diverse, who wants to participate.
Can I add one more thing? Is we've actually had some discussion as well on some additional training for members of the DEI work group, so that the members and the people that are there and present also have training on language, things that are being said, how that's going to come across, what kind of triggers that can pull from other people, et cetera, et cetera. So it's kind of discussions like this where, one thing, it's not, that the intention wasn't necessarily to hurt someone, but the impact came across as different from what the intention was, things like that. So all of these things are a work in progress, and that's why it's just so important that we get it together so that anybody that's sitting at that table is a good representation for other people to be able to come and approach it. So that training is also something we've been discussing on, hey, how can we, as the people that are sitting here creating this and those that are coming into it, what kind of training is there for us and any new members to be able to take to understand what does diversity look like? How does that come across in your language and the things that you're saying, and even just the way that you're presenting the material? So all valid points, Amber, definitely.
Appreciate the validation.
Other discussion? Is there any new business to discuss?
I will ask one more time. You indicated, Dave, that there's a document on the drive about committee members and committees.
Yes.
I couldn't find it. Maybe offline.
I will send it to you
could-
offline. Yep.
Thank you very much.
Very good. Other discussion?
One of these times, can you review that to make sure who believes they're on which committee? Because some of the committees I'm on, people don't show up regularly, and I don't know whether they're still parts of committees or not.
What I'll do is I'll send that link out to the entire board and to the
Right.
reports list so that everybody can see that. So thank you.
This was a good meeting. There's some good discussion this meeting.
This is one of the hardest issues that we've discussed in a long time, because it wasn't just a yes, we all approve and no discussion. So it's an important issue for us.
This was good.
The chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye or raise their hand.
Aye.
Aye. Good night, everybody.
All opposed, say no. Are there any abstentions? Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
So long.
Thank you.